This week on Comics Controllers, we talk about Uncanny Avengers, which is crazy, but it's that good kind of crazy that we've come to expect from Marvel Comics. We then also talk about Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds, which leads us into conversations about next-gen consoles and other topics related to Zelda. All that and more on this Episode 2, The Good Crack. Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Comics and Controllers. I'm Kyle, joined by my co-host Steven.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Steven. So what are we going to talk about first today?
I was hoping I could get you to tell me what you thought about Uncanny Avengers.
Uncanny Avengers. So, for those who don't know, Uncanny Avengers is written by Rick Remender and illustrated by John Cassaday. And basically, it is a team for the Avengers that's half Avengers and half X-Men.
It's the Avenger Unity Squad.
Yeah, Unity to whatever. That was kind of weird, the name they gave it.
They don't mention it a lot after that first trade, so you're good.
Okay, so this is my first thing about reading this story. As I said last time, I have not read any real comics in several years. So I'm kind of behind, especially in Marvel and DC, where they do all their huge events every 6 months or every 3 or however many they do it. Mm-hmm. So, and this is going to be a spoiler heavy discussion on Uncanny Avengers, but the first thing within literally the first 3 pages I read is Scott Summers killed Professor X. I was like, what? What happened? Scott Summers killed Professor X? That's ridiculous. Maybe they're going to explain to me what happened for new readers, because this is a brand new series. They never mention it.
No, they really don't.
No explanation. It's just, yeah, he did it, and he's in jail now, and he doesn't seem to, he doesn't really seem to regret it.
And I hate to tell you this, but you're going to have the exact same problem when you get to the second trade, because if you haven't read X-Force, the new X-Force that they did, it goes completely off of that.
Well, I'll probably have to Wikipedia and Google for answers or ask you or somebody else. But
exactly.
But so if you're like me and you didn't know that Scott Summers killed Professor Xavier, the long and short of it is the Phoenix Four split into 5 different people. Scott Summers was one of them. Scott Summers basically was the last one who had any of it. And whenever one of the other people didn't have it anymore, it went to the next people, so it kind of evened out.
It's kind of like Highlander.
Yeah, or like that Jet Li movie, The One.
Oh, yeah.
And so Scott Summers was the last one, and he basically became like a dark Cyclops Phoenix, and Professor X threatened to knock him stupid, and so he killed him.
He didn't mean to kill him.
Whatever. Regardless, it's typical comic book ridiculousness.
That is true.
But, so that's what leads to this whole thing, but the story then is kind of like Cyclops, or not Cyclops, but like Captain America and Thor are like, we need to do something because people are freaking out about mutants because there's more of them showing up, and, you know, we can't have this.
They did kind of take over the world for a little bit in Avengers vs. X-Men. They kind of had the world by the balls there for a little bit.
Yeah, see the 5 people with the Phoenix Force.
Right, yeah.
Who are all mutants. But, so they decide they're going to get people to join the Avengers who are X-Men or mutants. And they're like, we can get Wolverine to join, but he can't lead the team because it's Wolverine and everybody knows he's a psychopath.
And he was also at the time running a school, technically, but Wolverine's on 50 bazillion teams, so I'm sure he could have done it.
Yeah, I mean, it should be called Marvel Comics and Wolverine, because he's pretty much in all of them.
That's true.
But, so they end up getting Havoc to join.
Now, do you think that's just because he's Scott Summers' brother? They're like, we gotta resurrect this media nightmare, so we'll get the brother of the most hated man on the planet right now to lead our team?
I don't really know on that part, because the way it looked to me was like they weren't going to have him say who his real name was. He was going to live behind this code name, but he eventually told everybody in the media.
Yeah, he comes out with that big speech and says his real name.
Yeah, he gives his, speech on mutant racism, basically.
Yeah, the M word.
Yeah, the M word.
That was really interesting. I read that part twice because I don't know. It was one of those things that's like I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here.
I don't know. I understand, especially the origins of the X-Men, is that it was supposed to basically take a look at the civil rights movement during the 60s. And it was supposed to show racism. I understand that. But I feel like I don't want to say that it shouldn't be done now because there is still racism and it is still good to see it. But I think that this story is just like, it's almost like I'm sitting here reading it and like they're reaching out and grabbing my face and just ramming this like concept of racism in your face. Here it is. Here it is. Yeah. And I'm like, I understand.
And that's true. And it's kind of changed and adapted to where some people compare it more to, the struggle for gay rights. Also, different other like world events like that they compare it to. And I think they've tried to update it, but you can only update it so far before, like you said, it's just preachy.
Yeah, and I mean, especially because it's like the whole concept of this comic is based on showing this unity. Because it's kind of like they want to show that even though Charles Xavier is dead, his dream still lives on in this team. Humans and mutants living together, working together to stop bad stuff. But, so yeah, they form this team, or they try to start forming this team, and during this time, Scarlet Witch is showing back up, and everybody's still all, I remember what you did, Civil War just 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's when the Red Skull shows up and decides he's going to attach part of Xavier's brain to his so he can become some crazy telepath. Yep. And that, to me, that was that was another just craziness. I was like, wait, what a minute?
Yeah, that was definitely a moment where I reading the comic, I remember sitting there at work, I was reading the comic, and I was just like, wait, did I read that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, Red Skull's another one of those characters that I think a lot of people want to use him, but I don't really think he's used well often. I don't want to say, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I didn't like this story. I did, it was good. It was typical, ridiculous Marvel cheese. I mean, you could roll this up and smoke it.
It was a good crack. That's the way I was explaining it. It was a good kind of crack.
It was good. But like some of the stuff with him, because like he basically gets Xavier's brain put into his brain, so he can go around and like make humans riot against mutants and just start killing them in the streets.
And not to complicate that even further, but he even explains that he's not even the original Red Skull. He's one of the clones of the Red Skull that was kept in, I think, hibernation after World War II.
Oh man, let's not even get into that. I mean, at one point, Red Skull was in Captain America's body
years
ago.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that was like, come on, guy. I mean, the Nazis, seriously, it hasn't worked out in the last 70 some odd years.
Just give it up, man.
Just give it up.
Drop the goals.
Yeah. But some of my problems with it is that he does incite all these humans to start killing mutants in the street in New York. Like, not like, oh, here's like a group of 5 people, they're going to kill this dude. Like, no. New York.
Yeah.
Raging against mutants and killing them.
Yeah, there's a nice montage of just humans randomly turning on their, it makes it seem like there's like my best buddy, the mutant over here, and, stabbing them with a, ice pick or whatever now.
But I want you to ponder for a moment. After this is all said and done, you are a citizen of the Marvel Universe. You were involved in this whole situation. You were mind controlled by this guy to go kill mutants.
Yeah.
And you killed one.
Yeah.
How messed up are you after this?
Oh, my opinion is that everyone in the Marvel Universe sees a shrink, like on a weekly basis. It's just kind of a mandatory thing, especially if you live in New York or San Francisco, anywhere that there's a lot of superhero activity. Because even if you're not, let's say you're not, right? You still have to deal with this weight that, there are godlike powerful things out there that are going to attack the city eventually. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen, I remember after the Onslaught, if you remember the Onslaught, enemy when he attacked.
Yeah.
There were people going through that similar stuff. They were going to shrinks. A lot of people quit their jobs. A lot of people moved out of New York because basically the majority of the city got leveled, So
don't live in New York if you're in the Marvel Universe.
If you live in the Marvel Universe, stay away from New York and San Francisco. Just don't do it.
But yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking. I was like, all these people basically just went out and killed people. and they're just going to kind of go back and feel and be okay with it. It's like, yeah, it's cool, whatever.
No, I guarantee you half of them jumped off a bridge the next day.
Yeah. I mean...
Or do we... I mean, I don't think they ever say this, but do we know if they even remember, because they're under the influence, of this telepathic event, so I'm not sure how much they remember.
Well...
because he uses that Johnny... Oh, what is that guy's name?
Honest John, or
Honest
whatever?
John, yeah, who I actually like as a character, because they've used him before, I think, but...
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, because I'm guessing he has some kind of, like, suggestive telepathic power, but basically it's like they call him the living propaganda.
Yeah, because
he
everybody sees the same
Thor
person.
to do crazy stuff.
Yes, not everybody sees the same person. You see whoever you want to see, which is why when he convinces Thor sees Odin.
That's right.
And everybody else was seeing just like a public figure that they respected or, could trust.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept for a villain.
Yeah.
So, I liked him.
That's a good point that you mentioned him as villain, because one of the things I actually liked about Uncanny Avengers was their mix of villains.
Yeah. You get some villains from the Avengers side, and you get some villains from the X-Men side.
And they're not all the stereotypical villains. You're like, oh, well, if Red Skull's here, these people will show up, or we're likely to see this X-Men villain who's kind of the equivalent to Red Skull. No, they really kind of mixed it up.
Yeah, like one of the things that I've never really read a lot of Avengers stuff. If I was reading things that related to Avengers, it was probably because I was reading Thor or Captain America, and they were dealing with the Avengers, because back before the Avengers disassemble thing, the way I saw the Avengers was it was just like, hey, look, it's Captain America, Thor, Hulk, and a bunch of people I don't care about because they're garbage.
Yeah.
And if I wanted
switched
to read
people so much that you couldn't even be guaranteed that the people you wanted to read would be in the book that month.
Yeah, and furthermore, the people whose the power scale of the people didn't compare to the villains they were facing or to other people on the team. Like, if I've got a god on the team like Thor, why do I need, like, Jack of Hearts? I mean, that guy's garbage. He's dead now, but who cares?
He had the best part in Avengers Disassembled.
Yeah, he did. That was probably the biggest part he ever had in any comic. And the most interesting.
That is true.
But, so a lot of the Avengers, villains I've heard of, but I don't know anything about them. So, like, when Grim Reaper shows up, I'm like, okay, I kind of know who this guy is, but I don't know anything about him. And I thought that was interesting because in that moment, you can tell that, like, Rogue doesn't know anything about him either.
Mm-hmm.
And so she just says, hey, Wonder Man, let me get some of your power.
Because he's a pacifist now.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's another way. He went bad for a while, and then, they immediately, as soon as he goes back good, they're like, well, we'll accept you back on the team. And he's like, well, I'm a pacifist. And I'm like, why didn't y'all tell him to get his ass off the team then? Because he's useless.
I could just see him being like, okay, well, thanks for welcoming me back. I'm a pacifist now. And all of them just face palm like, oh, man. We bring back this dude who's awesomely powerful, and he's a pacifist? Worthless. And he's already signed up for the dental and medical benefits?
They will address that more in further issues. Don't worry.
But yeah, so she takes his power, and she's going to go fight Grim Reaper. And when she does, she just, she's Rogue. She's used to being super strong back in the past, and she knows that most X-Men villains you can beat the stew out of them, but it doesn't do anything. She just runs up and punches him. Well, she punches him so hard she kills him because Grim Reaper is just a human with like this little cybernetic arm.
It also doesn't help that one of the first things he says is that he's unkillable or unbeatable or something like that. So I think she took him at his word.
I mean, yeah, like when the Juggernaut tells you, I'm unstoppable, you're like, oh, really? Oh, he is. I have to really be extra forceful with this guy. Evidently, Grim Reaper, all smoke and mirrors.
Right.
But that led me to wonder, what other Avengers villains really aren't that powerful, and why can't people like Thor and Captain America and the Hulk just totally decimate them anytime they come across them? Why are they really a challenge? Is that why the Avengers used to be a bunch of B-listers with 3 or 4 major characters?
Okay, I'll put it this way. Most of them have time to prepare, and so a lot of times, the first time the Avengers run into them, they get outsmarted, or like I said, it's the Batman thing. They had time to prepare, so they win the first round usually, right?
Well, yeah, Baron Zemo and people like that completely understand. Yeah. That's their thing, is they're masterminds.
Well, even like Trapster and, Manotaur,
Trapster.
whatever.
Oh my god.
But I'm saying, like, when these villains first showed up in the comics, back in the day, they were new. They had to look impressive. So they had, Trapster's a great example because he just has a ton of stuff set up ahead of time.
Yeah.
But once they catch him off guard, like you said, they just kind of mop the floor with him. Because you got Thor and Captain America and the Hulk.
I mean, really, if he had set up a bunch of traps in an area to get him to go through, couldn't Thor just, like, slam his hammer into it and knock them all out and just look at him like, seriously,
it's just not good storytelling if he does that, man. It's not good storytelling.
But yeah, I thought that was funny because you kind of got to see that, it made me really realize the power scale of some of the stuff the X-Men deal with compared to the Avengers and how neither one of them really had a good idea of what the other one's villains are like. So Rogue just runs up and just cold cocks Grim Reaper and kills me with a single hit.
Yeah.
But in the same comic, I think, is it either the same issue or the issue right before that, you kind of get to see what they're leading into for the second trade or the second series of stories, which deals with Holocaust and Apocalypse type stuff.
Yeah.
And Kang, who is seriously probably one of the more ridiculous of the Avengers villains.
Yeah, and they're really kind of bringing him back to prominence. The next story arc is called the Apocalypse Twins, and I'll just let you kind of guess where this goes from there. Yeah. But I actually think it's better. It's just as crazy at parts, but it seems like there's more purpose for the crazy. And so I think you'll really like where it goes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not really trying to talk trash about Uncanny Avengers. I actually really liked it. For it being the first thing I've read that's an actual Marvel superhero comic, it was good. But it just kind of reminded me of some of the ridiculousness that I'd come to miss from reading comics for so long. It was just the crazy stuff. And there's so much going on in the past. And this was not mentioned in the comic, but this is something I saw somewhere else. Someone's like, hey, Doctor Strange isn't the Sorcerer Supreme anymore. I was like, what? Who is it? Like, Brother Voodoo. I was like, yes. Brother Voodoo?
He was
B-lister of the B-listers.
I will tell you this. As someone who's reading All New X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, Uncanny Avengers, and a couple of the new ones since they've kind of started doing the Marvel now, all of them have something crazy in them. Some do it better than others. But it's almost like they were... okay, we're doing this soft reboot, but we want to keep people completely invested in what's going on. So without going too crazy, we need you to go kind of crazy.
And that's probably a good thing because, I mean, I don't want to read comics where the Avengers are going out and beating up the Wrecking Crew every other issue.
That's true.
Because seriously, whatever. I mean, I want it. If you bring together the Avengers, what was their catchphrase? The Earth's mightiest heroes? Yes. They should have to face the Earth's mightiest villains.
Yes.
Not a bunch of, bank robbers who Loki gave magical construction tools and power tools to so he can go beat people up with them.
Well, usually they also it's so rare that you ever see them fight one person anymore. Like in this case, in the Uncanny Avengers, Red Skull had his S-Men, which I liked. They were neat. But the point is that you have usually these groups of villains that they fight, like they're fighting the entirety of Hydra or the entirety of AIM, or this master villain has recruited, 30 other villains to work under him. So
yeah, that's true. And I mean, it's understandable. The X-Men might be kind of an exception to that, but that's because some of their villains are so ridiculous.
Right. Well, when you're fighting Apocalypse, it's not like he really needs anyone, but even he has the Four Horsemen. So
true. True.
You brought up a very interesting point, and I just think this is worth mentioning that I personally never read the Avengers until House of M. That's when I really got into, I wonder what the Avengers are doing. And I think the movies, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the actual Avengers movie, have really gotten people a lot more back into reading that team, of course. They've picked up a lot. But there was a time period where the Avengers really was one of their least selling books.
Because there was a bunch of just B-listers and C-list characters that most people had never even heard of.
Right, and I think people forget also that Iron Man was really not a huge part of the Avengers until like the very late, I'd say like late 90s, early 2000s, because through most of the 90s, he was really just kind of the money for the Avengers for a while.
Well, I mean, he was one of the founding members,
Right.
but there was a time point during the whole Tony Stark's a raging alcoholic.
Yes. He really fell out of grace with most of those books.
And that's probably also why most of the Avengers stuff now has people who are in the movies. Because it's like, well, if people are going to come read these after seeing the movies, we at least need to have some characters they recognize. We can't just have Jack of Hearts and Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch and all these other people who no one's ever heard of in the Avengers.
And we need characters that we could make spin-off movies of, too, if we wanted to.
Yeah, or put in the new movie if we need to.
I will say, one of the things about me not reading a lot of Avengers, I was not used to the way Wasp kind of acted in some of the... I know you haven't gotten to all of this yet, but she is very different from what I remember from reading in Avengers, and she's very different from like the cartoons and stuff that I'm used to seeing her in. And I don't know if it's just because she got killed in Secret Invasion that maybe she came back and she was just not a happy camper after that, but she seemed really aggressive and agitated. Well,
she was a leader she was an Avengers team leader for a while, and she's been around forever. So I think it's one of those like, hey, you young whippersnappers, I was here in the day. I was a founding member of this team. Shut your mouth.
Right. And as we mentioned with earlier, the conflict the constant back and forth between Scarlet Witch and Rogue, and that continues even through the next trade. Them, biting each other's heads off.
Well, I haven't seen a lot of that, so I can't comment much on it, but it's understandable, some of the stuff. I mean, Scarlet Witch did, while being kind of manipulated, did almost, destroy the entire world or recreate the world and mess people up.
Right. Well, when her and Rogue are captured by the S-Men, they're arguing. They're sitting there. That's like the beginning of their ongoing argument right there. So you've seen it. It's just, I'm just letting you know they continue with that aspect of it.
Well, I do look forward to reading more of it. I'm easily going to pick up the next couple trades, and I'll probably put it on my constant pull list.
Good.
So, but if there's anything else out there anybody else thinks I should start reading, that's an ongoing series, Marvel or DC, I'm willing to try anything. Let me know, because if I read it and I like it, I'll tell you about it. If I read it and I don't like it, I'll still tell you about it.
Yeah. I would at least say you should pick up the first trade of All New X-Men. Are you familiar with what the plot line for that book is?
No clue. I'll be surprised then when I pick it up.
Well, I'll just tell you this, so you can tell me, you can decide if you want, and understand that I'm saying that it's good. But the basic plot line is that Beast realizes that everything's gone to crap after the Phoenix Force debacle. Or, sorry, the Phoenix 5 debacle. Mm-hmm. And he has some personal problems going on that he can't deal with. So he goes back in time, gets the original group of X-Men, the original 5, and brings them to the present to hopefully convince Cyclops and the other X-Men to kind of change what they're doing. God. And they get stuck there. That's the premise. But
I don't know if I want to read this.
No. Listen to me. It makes for some of the best moments possible. Because Jean Grey has just become a psychic and can read people's minds. And then suddenly she accidentally reads someone's mind who knows everything that ever happens to her. And it makes for one of the best freakouts.
So this will be the last thing I'm going to say on it, and we'll move on to our next subject. But for Beast to be a genius, that's sure really stupid to do.
I think,
if I remember correctly,
a couple of people call him out on that.
Didn't he watch Back to the Future too? Doesn't he know what happens? I never thought about this. Yeah. Oh, well, I'll take a look at it and let y'all know what I think of it.
I tell you what, if you will at least just do me the favor, read the first 6, because it's worth it.
Oh man, this is going to be one of those, you made me read this.
Exactly.
All right. So, moving on, our next thing we wanted to talk about today.
The controller side.
Yeah, get into the game. So, I have to make an apology.
This should be good.
So, a couple years ago, Nintendo was going to release their 3DS system. And I trash-talked that system so much. I was like, why am I going to buy that? 3D, it's so terrible, blah, 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 blah. This system's garbage. I can't believe people are buying this. Now, it did have some hiccups in the beginning, and there were some problems with it. But, what I will say is now, I'm apologizing, because I have bought a 3DS, actually a 3DS XL, which is the one with the bigger screen, and it is probably one of the better gaming experiences I've had in the last several years.
I'd just like to point out that I don't blame you, because when I first heard about the 3DS, although I didn't trash it, I certainly, my first thought was, why do I want a handheld to have 3D? That sounds ridiculous. Now,
I don't know anybody else who does. I don't use a 3D because, one, it's not real 3D. It's this weird kind of, it's faux 3D. You have to hold it exactly right, and it doesn't always look right, and it gives me the most killer headache to even try.
Yeah, that's what I hear is the main complaint are headaches. And you don't use any of the great, wonderful augmented reality stuff that they do with it?
No, I haven't messed with that. I mean, it's probably neat, and it's a cool concept, but that's not what I wanted. I bought it, I'm not going to lie, I bought it originally because I wanted to play the new Pokemon games.
Right, X and Y.
Mm-hmm. I had never played Pokemon before these games, but somebody I was watching on YouTube named Pokemon Rob cracked me up. I was like, I think I could play these games. They look like a good time waster, and they are. I played through Pokemon X and loved it.
Cool.
And then I saw that they were doing The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds, which is an actual sequel to A Link to the Past. And it is amazing.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
It's cool because A Link to the Past is my favorite Zelda game. Like, I've played through it so many times on the Super Nintendo, and when they re-released it on the Game Boy Advance, I played through it several times on there too. And to actually have a sequel in the same world, there's a lot of times things will happen that you expect. Like, oh, I know that there's a temple here that I have to go get something from. Mm-hmm. And it is there, but it's not the same temple, or it doesn't work the same way it did before and stuff like that.
Right.
And so a lot of times you'll have the same items, but you don't get them the same way, or similar items, you have to do something different. And there is new stuff in there too that what didn't happen before, but it does play off of the original game.
Yeah, it looks I've watched several videos on it. It looks amazing, and it really makes me think that our conversation last week about innovation in games has even more of a place for a much larger conversation, because obviously it looks like they sat down and said, what made Link to the Past so great? What really worked here? What should we keep and what should we do different?
Yeah. Now, I wonder if this game would have been as good or as popular if I've never played A Link to the Past or I didn't know anything about it. So I need to talk to people who've never played A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo and see what they think of this.
Right. Well, if the game is good, and it looks really good, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be enjoyable. It just might not have, you don't have the extra kick from nostalgia, and you have a little bit harder of a time maybe getting into the story because you don't know the previous story. But I can't imagine someone actually not enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, most people who I know who've played it and have played multiple other Zelda games will all agree that this is probably one of the best ones, if not the best.
Now, how is the part with, I noticed one of the new gimmicks in this one is that you can put yourself into the wall.
Yeah, you can turn into a painting and move along the walls. That, it takes some getting used to because you have to think about, like, you're always looking at it from a certain angle, but sometimes if you're on a wall, you might be able to go around behind a house or something, and maybe there's something on the back of the house that you couldn't have seen unless you were on the wall.
See, I think I would have a lot of fun exploring those possibilities. That seems like something that you have to have a lot of good spatial awareness to use properly, and I think it would make a new, creative, innovative idea that would get people to think outside the box.
Yeah, it really has, because a lot of times I'll be in places, I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? I don't see where I'm supposed to go. And then I'll look and I'll be like, there's just a tiny enough space that if I'm on a wall, I can move around to the other side. So I have to, and sometimes it's just testing it too. Like, well, can I do this? Oh, yeah, I can. Or, oh, no, it doesn't work. But it's a really unique mechanic that adds a lot to the game.
Yeah, that's some of the most fun in video games to me, is when you can sit there and play with an interesting mechanic or play with the environment to, even if it's not the way you were meant to go, or the method in which the puzzle was supposed to be solved, as long as it works, you feel creative and you feel like you get something out of the experience. And that's what makes those types of games stand out more in my mind later on. I remember how cool it was to figure this out or to, try this new mechanic that really stuck with me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's kind of what I remember about the original Link to the Past was like trying to find where all the bottles were hidden. Like I knew there were 4 bottles in the game. Where are they at? And there's that one that's the guy has who's under the bridge.
Yep.
And I was like, I never would have, it just didn't even imagine, dawn on me to go under this bridge while swimming and find it. And so, but while playing this game, I was like, there's a guy under that bridge I know. Sure enough, same bridge, there's a different dude under there and you get a bottle from him. I was like, I knew there's one down here. But then the other ones, you get different places in different ways you wouldn't have thought of before. So they kind of draw back to the old, but they have innovative ways of adding in these same items, but from different means.
Very cool. I will not be playing it probably until they port it to the Wii U or something similar, but I look forward to it, and I think that I'm really proud of what they've done with it so far. And I know a lot of people are like, oh well, why did they take so long to make the game, and this could have come out so long ago, but don't rush things if you want them to be good.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. You mentioned the Wii U though, and we're still kind of on the topic of Zelda. Today, actually, they announced another Zelda game on the Wii U, but it's a little bit different. It's called Hyrule Warriors, which is just a working name, but basically It's Legend of Zelda and Dynasty Warriors combined.
Yeah, and you sent me the trailer for that. I had not heard anything about it, but I was kind of blown away by the trailer.
Yeah, because it's basically Link fighting with using all the items like bombs and the fire staff and stuff that you've come to know in the games.
Mm-hmm.
But he's fighting like massive swarms of people and giant monsters and stuff.
Yeah,
so,
the giant bosses look great.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a big Dynasty Warriors fan. I think I played the first or second one.
Right.
And they just kind of got repetitive for me, so I couldn't keep up with them.
They are very repetitive. They're fun if you like grinding games, but they can be very repetitive.
Yeah, but I'm interested in this. Like, I don't have a Wii U, but Nintendo is constantly trying to convince me to buy one. Super Mario Land 3D, this game, Zelda Skyward Sword, and then Smash Brothers 4.
Yeah. All are
things.
Really convincing me that maybe hold off on getting the PS4 or the Xbox One for a little bit. Go ahead and get the Wii U.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be probably a price drop on the Wii U after the new year.
I hope so, yeah.
It just, having worked at GameStop for years and seeing price drops, that's usually what happens, is they keep it as expensive as they can throughout the holidays, and then afterward, usually around February or March, they do a price drop.
Yep.
The other two probably won't because they're still new, but Wii U at that point is going to be over a year old, so it's due for a price drop. Yeah. Don't know what it would be, because I think it's $300 now.
Yeah, I believe it's a little over $300, but you can get the version for I think $20 more that comes with the bigger hard drive, and it also has Super Mario U and Super Luigi U.
So yeah, but I'm really thinking about getting that, because my thing with the other two systems is they really are not a big step up. I mean, I have a computer that I built 2 years ago that's more powerful than those two next-gen consoles. I say with quotation marks.
Right. Well, PC's always been, ahead of the mark. So,
but the problem is that because these console companies make games specifically on the consoles, they hold back the PC games.
Yep. Or they do, as we were discussing earlier, really, really bad ports that just don't work as well on PC because they don't think it's worth their time or money to put into PC ports, or they get other companies to do their port.
Yeah, which that's the worst thing ever. Like, to see a game, like I was going to hold out and get Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PC whenever it was ported over, because it's going to be. But then I was like, you know what? It's probably going to be ported over, and it's probably going to be garbage. Because that's what happened with Grand Theft Auto 4. When it was ported over, it was crap. I was like, so I'll just go ahead and get it on the PS3 and play it.
Have you played it yet?
No, not yet.
You should.
It's one of those ones I have to wait till I have a lot of time.
Well, we will discuss that one later.
Yeah. I
recently got the new Mortal Kombat game, and I already owned it on the PS3, but I wanted to get it on my PC because there were people who I knew that only played it on PC. So we were going to all buy this game and play against each other online, but it's so slow and laggy online. It's not that bad, if you're just playing by yourself against the computer, but as soon as you try to play against an opponent, it slows down so much. So bad.
And see, that's one of those things, like when they ported it over, they probably didn't optimize it to make it work, the multiplayer work as well on the PC as it would on the consoles. That's my thing, it's like, the PS4 and the Xbox One, there's really nothing on them that I won't even play.
Yeah, I kind of want to play Dead Rising 3, but it's just, there's no way that that's enough to get me to buy an entire console to play that game.
I mean, to me, when the system comes out, you've got to look at what's the launch titles. And if all the launch titles, 9 times out of 10, the launch titles are all sports games. That's going to come out every year, so there's no innovation in them at all. So hang it up.
Or they have Forza 5 that apparently is the most microtransaction latent game to ever exist.
I would challenge that with Star Wars Old Republic, because that game's even probably more microtransaction.
But have you heard like how much the cars cost for? I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the amount that you have to spend to get all these cars.
You don't unlock them by playing the game?
You can unlock some by playing the game. But not, like, one of the big complaints, I'm not a race car person. I don't play racing games. But I read 2 or 3 of the reviews because it was one of the launch titles, and almost everyone said that there was a lack of cars that you could unlock without having to buy.
That's like Killer Instinct. I get this game, and you tell me I have one hero, and I have to buy the rest?
Well, first of all, though, if you're not paying for that. I think you get the one hero for free. But then you pay for other characters you want to unlock. What I like about that is I choose who I want to unlock. So if I know that I suck with Fulgore, I'm not going to buy Fulgore. But I'm great with Spinal. Well, I'll spend the money on Spinal.
I don't know. It still seems like a cop-out. Like, I don't know. I'm not really down with all these microtransactions that games have.
I'm interested in it because, like I said, unless I read it incorrectly, they give you the base game for free, which is the one character, right?
Yeah, they do.
And then everything else is a la carte, which is how a lot of gamers have been saying they would like more stuff to be. So, if you know you're only ever going to want to play with 4 characters, you spend the money to get the 4 characters.
Maybe.
I'm interested to see how that works. Because if that works well, maybe we'll see them do a better system for games like that in the future. Like right now, I love Street Fighter, but I waited forever until they were on sale to buy all the extra costumes and stuff because they didn't sell the costumes individual to characters. So I couldn't just go, well, I'm really good with Akuma. Let me go buy Akuma's costumes. They're all grouped by 3 or 4 different characters, so you have to buy Akumas, Blankas, and, Guiles all together. Well, I don't use Blanca and Guile. I never use them. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Microtransactions, I think, are the worst because 9 times out of 10, it's like, why wasn't this just in the game? Especially when it's a microtransaction the day of launch.
Yeah, or it's something that's already on the disc, and you're really just paying to unlock something on the disc. It's not even a download. Like Tekken vs. Street Fighter, or Street Fighter vs. Tekken, I'm sorry. Street Fighter vs. Tekken. When that came out, there were several characters that were only available like on the Vita and the PS3, and you had to pay to unlock them. I'm like, they're on the disc. They're already in the game. Everything I need is in there. You're just making me pay money to gain access to something I technically already paid $60 for.
Yeah, ain't that some crap?
It is. It's something other than crap, but...
Yeah. But so, yeah, like I said, the new consoles... I wasn't impressed with the Wii U initially either, and I haven't really been impressed with... I'm most definitely not impressed with the other ones, just because I don't really think... They're not really innovative, and as... you mentioned to me before we started recording, they used to say these console cycles were basically 7 to 10 years, but they've already said, well, these new ones might only be 5. It's like, why'd you just not extend it a little bit and just release a better product in 2 to 3 years than like rush out this one and then have to do another one in another 5?
It's all for the almighty dollar.
It's all about the Benjamins.
Yeah, it is. But I agree with you because I think Wii U right now, because it has been out a year and because they have been, Nintendo's having a lot of problems right now with third-party games, so they're shelling out their own games a lot quicker.
And that's fine to me because their own games are what I want their system for.
Right.
I wanted to play Mario, and I want to play Donkey Kong, and I want to play Zelda and all this stuff. I don't care if the new Madden or Splinter Cell's on your system. I want to play that on a PC or something.
Right. And we kind of brushed over it, but the new Super Mario Wii U and the Super Luigi Wii U are both not bad games either, especially if you have someone to play them with. Those are meant to be couch co-op games. I don't know if you've seen those, but what's really neat is that you can kind of mess with the other players. If you want to help them, you can help them, and if you want to, kind of detour them, you can. You can be that jerk on the couch next to them, putting blocks in their way.
Yeah, I mean, those are all games that I really want to play on there. So, but I think once it drops in price, I'll probably pick up a Wii U, but I don't see myself picking up the other two anytime soon, unless somewhere suddenly, like, some game is announced that's only going to be on there. It's like Elder Scrolls 6, only on the Xbox One. I'll be like, damn it.
Exactly.
Gotta get it.
It's about the Elder Scrolls Online right now.
I didn't really care for it.
Did you play the beta?
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't get a chance to play the beta, but everybody I've talked to so far has pretty much had the meh reaction.
That's a pretty good description of it. It's like, meh, I'll just go play World of Warcraft again.
It's
already refined.
Most of the people were just like, I now want to go play Skyrim again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to play an MMO, you go play something else. But
right.
If you want to play Elder Scrolls, just go play Skyrim. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. We had a little bit of discussion on Uncanny Avengers, and we started talking about Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, and we went off on all sorts of other things.
Right. We touched on a lot today on the video game side.
Most definitely. But if you want to send us any email, you can email us at comicsandcontrollers@gmail.com. If you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at ZombieJesus here. Where can they follow you at, Steven?
Also on Twitter under my name, Steven Wilds. That's Steven with a PH.
All right, so STEVENPH Wilds?
No, it's PHTEVEN.
Oh, okay. I'll get it right. For Steven. All right, guys. Well, until next time, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Steven.
And this has been Comics Controllers. Have a good one.